today's focus is on Nvidia and the battle with Dell Incorporated in terms of market share dominance. So the issue that comes up is, why is it that Dell stock price fell as much as 25% last night? The answer to that is simple. I believe it's a company called Nvidia. Now, this is not obviously a Dell, an Nvidia exclusively or a Tesla show, but as you know, Elon is heavily involved in the development of Nvidia. Elon and slash Tesla has purchased 10,000 chips, and so therefore they're heavily involved in what's going on here. Tesla slash Elon is also working on Dojo and the design of chips that will somewhat have an impact on the dominance of Nvidia, because how many other companies that need chips will be designing their own to compete with the almost monopoly that Elon described that Nvidia has. So this is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks once again for joining us. If this is your first time, welcome. If you're a repeat visitor, welcome back. We also want to thank our Patreon supporters. If you enjoy the show, like better ideas on investing and trading, please join us. We also want to note to you that likes and subscribes are also appreciated. So today is kind of an unusual show. The reason is that obviously it's not a primarily Tesla-focused show. It also is a situation where this sort of leans into the shows that we've been doing on investing. So what happened is that yesterday, I have a good friend that I'm sort of part of a trading group. And what he said to me was, he said, I think, Nvidia's done great, and that's good. But now what's starting to happen is PC manufacturers like Dell are starting to actually do pretty well, because there's an incentive relative to AI for customers to start buying PCs again, and Dell will benefit from that. So I said to him, yes, the logic you just shared totally makes sense, but there's one little problem with that. The fact that on the front end, Nvidia is going to be selling more chips to assist in the AI capabilities of those PCs. But there's one other problem here, which is the server business. So I did a quick glance today to look at it, and it turns out that Dell has 21% of the server business globally. And yeah, there could be small ones, but I really think we're talking about the big ones that sit in centers that move a lot of traffic at data centers. Now, it turns out that the leader in this market space is Dell with 21%. HP has share there of 16%. I want to say IBM is the other player, but there are several other players that slice the market up. So yes, they're involved in PCs. They do make money in that space, but also a low margin, low price zone. When we're talking about servers, we're talking about a lot of dollars. There's services needed to keep those up, et cetera. So when I heard this comment that he made about the fact that Dell is going to do well and it's a better investment than Nvidia, I was skeptical. And the main reason is that for the last couple of weeks, I've been spending a lot of time watching videos where the CEO of Nvidia talks about their value proposition, what they offer different customer groups. And so one of the most surprising elements of what is going on at Nvidia is the battle between GPUs, graphical processing units, and CPUs. So the reason why this battle pops up now is a conversation in the destruction, I think, of Dell's stock price and the stock price of some of the other entities that rely on that marketplace, is that the head of Nvidia has a video on from one of their investor meetings within the last 2 years. And what he pointed out is that one of their top of the line GPUs, graphical units can take over the work of an entire data center of, regular CPUs. So I saw this and I was like, oh my. I now see why Nvidia has been such a great buy, why it's continuing to rise, because they've created new markets, but they're also doing this thing where they're pulling the rug out from underneath all these other companies that rely on the server business to make it work. So the next question I was wondering was, well, why would the large companies get wiped out in this fashion? Well, when you think about, if you go from, let's say, a desk-sized machine that wipes out all the computers necessary for a data center, that's pretty awesome. And it means that those vendors don't have to pay to heat or cool that building. They also don't have to have as large a space to store their servers in as they would normally, based on using old technologies or CPUs, if you will. So the next question that comes up is, well, what about just the CPUs used currently seem to have been doing the job? Why is it such a big deal? Well, it turns out that not only do you have all the other benefits that I just described, but you also have the benefit of the fact that in order to handle the data-hungry nature of how consumers are using servers, in particular video, what's happening right now is you're starting to what's called overclock the CPUs. So in order to get them to work on all the video, we now have a process going where we're overclocking the CPUs in order to get it to handle all the video in the fashion I just described. So I'm reviewing this with you because what it really shows is that yesterday, after Dell announced that its numbers were down, and they had to announce it's going to be further down because as more GPUs from Nvidia are available, it's really going to take a bite out of their business and everybody else's business in that space. We're also going to see the fact that a lot of those machines are running on Intel and other chips, but they're not necessarily going to be buying more Intel chips to service their CPUs. And so I just think that there's a sector of the whole computing business that's going to get slammed by the dominance of Nvidia. And I think it's an important thing to be aware of what's going on, just in case you own these stocks, etc. It might be time for you to spend some time watching videos about why people are enjoying GPUs and the impact they're having on the entire industry currently. So it turns out one of the investors that's sort of in our group saw a video that said Dell will do well and recommended that other people look at it. And so there has been an expansion of the, hey, let's get on Dell as they're about to do earnings because we're going to see power. Now, the other question that could happen is when Dell's stock price opened, it dropped. I saw 37 down 37 as of yesterday. But I actually believe that there's going to be a follow-through of this because right now the demand from buyers for Nvidia's products is so intense that they can't meet all the demand and they have 100% market share. So I believe that it will be an overtime process for Nvidia servers to really dominate a lot of the server farms that are out there. And so we look forward to seeing how this all works out. But I just think it means less market share for the big players there now, more market share for Nvidia and its partners. And I think it's going to be painful for the stocks of all the major players in that server business I just described. So I know we're not heavily on the Tesla run today. Tesla has been relatively sideways, between 170 and 180 as we figure out, where we are in growth, where we can look for growth, et cetera. But there are some other things happening, particularly with Nvidia and its market share gains, and then how competitors' market share are getting slammed in the process. So wanted to encourage you, to consider these variables if you're in these stocks long term. I think there's going to be some pain there, all driven by Nvidia. And the challenge is Nvidia is so high that fewer people want to go there because it is kind of high, legitimate argument. But I just think that there's a big change coming that it's worth the time to understand. At any rate, next we'd like to move on to our health tips for the day. I just wanted to note, obviously we have our 25 leg lifts a day per leg. We've talked about that a lot. You can see all the health tips recommended down below. Also wanted to remind you that about 70% of the doctors we've talked to are all doing some form of fasting. So I wanted to encourage you to consider that as well. Also wanted to note to you that we've talked about kidneys a few times and trying to do less meat, more non-meat days each week. And today I just want to remind you of our discussion of, we had our discussion of daily walks for 20 minutes recommended by psychiatrists from Georgetown, and I highly recommend. It's working great, and I'd recommend it for you to try it out. At any rate, I want to thank you once again for joining us. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Tschüss, au revoir, lehitraot, choda hapezdra, ni hama, namaste, hotep, arrivederci. And in Jamaica, we say enough respect, walk good, man. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day, and bye for now.